The following is a production of the University of Minnesota.
And we come to the Vietnam War period, and that was a time of considerable upheaval on campus and in society at large. How did the Senate take up some of the issues that led to?
The Senate by then had changed dramatically. The leadership of the Senate was not only the old establishment types, but people who firmly believed in academic freedom and who acted on their beliefs. People like my colleague in the philosophy department, Burnham Terrell, were actively engaged in anti-war activities, yet was one of the leaders of the Senate. He was a member of the Consultative Committee and chair of the Consultative Committee, vice chair of the Senate for a number of times. And some of the upheavals that took place, he and Forrest came up with some kind of really constructive ideas. He was then also director of the honors division of the College of Liberal Arts. And I had just come back from the University of California at Berkeley, where I was a visiting professor in 1967-68, right at the height of the activities there. And I was teaching a graduate seminar on radical labor in American history. So I had some of the most, shall we say, active students, graduate students that were there then. And in fact, I was a cause célèbre at Berkeley. Coming back from lunch once, I was attacked by a radical activist who said I was a police spy because I knew more about the labor movement and the radical movement than anybody else. So, and my colleagues defended me. So there was an emergency meeting of the Berkeley Senate to protest the actions of vigilante students against a visiting professor, me. Well, anyway, so I just come back from Berkeley and being imbued with this kind of thing, and the first thing that greets me is that statement that I have to take over the social science program, be its director. This was being phased out. They needed someone to do it softly, soft landing. And they asked me to do that, and I did. And but it became an instrument through which Burnham Terrell, members of the Senate, and I were able to kind of channel the anti-war sentiment of the students into a creative way. Instead of closing down all classes, we had alternative classes. We brought in people from the community to teach with members of the faculty courses that dealt with contemporary issues. So we were able to kind of channel the activities in that direction. During the upheavals of the late 60s and early 70s, the Senate was also very active through the Twin Cities Campus Assembly. See, the Senate then divided somewhat into, campus assemblies for the different units of the university. So there was a Twin Cities Campus Assembly that was also part of the Senate. But through the Twin Cities Campus Assembly, we were able to try to creatively channel this hostility and anti-war activity into creative activities, into positive things. We didn't always succeed. In fact, after the revelations of the secret bombing of Cambodia, there was a massive kind of explosion of activity, which of course led to street demonstrations and things of that nature. But the Senate, and I was in the Senate then, and I worked to try to kind of put a lid on this without destroying academic freedom, to allow protests, but yet to channel it into creative activities. We also helped President Moose to try to maintain some kind of balance. I personally had some friends, over in St. Paul. My good friend Rudy Perpich was now lieutenant governor. The person who introduced me to Minnesota history was now lieutenant governor, and I called him and said, "Get the governor not to send any troops on campus," and he agreed not to. But the mayor of Minneapolis didn't agree to, and we had a major police riot on campus. So we were doing things like that were helping to kind of to channel things correctly. And the Senate was very active in this work, and very creative in its work.
Around that time, we had an occupation of Morrill Hall by the students who felt they weren't getting heard in the other channels that they might have liked to. And that led to some changes in how we structured some of our classes and our approach. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I got a phone call from the president's office saying that President Moose wants me to come over immediately. The students in his office who are demanding an immediate establishment of an African-American department. The reason I was called is because as chairman of the social science program, I was chairing a committee, graduate committee, to look into the expansion of ethnic studies on campus, to create, in fact, we were looking to create a comparative program in ethnic studies on the graduate level. And Moose knew that, so he called me to speak to the African-American students. So I came over, and it was right in his office there, and they were all surrounding him around the desk, and he introduced me, and I started saying that what we were doing, and one of the students, Rosemary Freeman, shouted out, "We ain't interested in comparing nothing with nothing. We want a Black Studies department now," And I said, well, things move kind of regularly, relatively slowly at the university, and curricular changes take time, and they were impatient. President Moose asked to be excused to go to the bathroom, and they allowed him to go, and he never came back. So I was the subject that was being held hostage. Well, that led to the whole Morrill Hall takeover, which lasted actually about 24 hours, that's about all. But during that time, Vice President Don Smith, Burnham Terrell, knew a few other people on campus, Burnham Terrell as Vice Chair of the Senate, and I were negotiating with the students, and we came up with an agreement that we'd move to the creation of a program in African American studies, but that would be done through the normal curricular pattern, normal academic pattern. We would hasten it a bit. We also came up with the agreement to establish a scholarship fund for minority students. It turned out to be the Martin Luther King Fund. And then Associate Vice President Fred Lukeman became very active in promoting that. Well, of course, when the Morrill Hall takeover ended, the press was all over the place, and of course it was covered that through every television channel had pictures of it and so on, and of course President Moose called an emergency meeting of the Senate to discuss what we had agreed to. There was a great deal of opposition in the Senate to what we had agreed to, because essentially what we were doing was in fact streamlining the process and hastening the process. And as you know, faculty don't want things hastened. They want things slowed down. Now, unless it's their own thing that they want. Then they want it immediately.
My favorite joke about that is, how many faculty does it take to change a light bulb? Change?
Change? Who wants to change a light bulb?
Right.
Who needs to change a light bulb? Yeah, so the Senate meeting was very, very tense. And Don Smith was presenting the proposal for us, but the bulk of the defense came in my hands, you know. And well, I was called many things, to be sure, but the fact remains that after long and acrimonious debate, the Senate overwhelmingly approved what we had agreed to. You know? There were dissidents, but there were overwhelmingly approval. Now, this was the beginning of a major change that took place on the curricular level, both undergraduate and graduate. Because what this did is open up the possibility of major curricular changes, programmatic changes. The social science program, which was being phased out, was overnight transformed into the experimental programs. Well, the Department of Experimental Programs, and I was still put in charge of it. And through that medium, we experimented with different not only courses but programs. Out of it, I can proudly say, came the Urban Studies program, the African American Studies program, the Chicano Studies program, the American Indian Studies program, the Women's Studies program.